Hi everyone, Sherry Palmer here with the 4 at 4. Today's Tuesday, so we are on, we do our individual videos, and I'm going to give everyone a few minutes so they can realize that I'm on here live and jump on. We're in the process of moving, and it's very humid here, so my hair is kind of frizzy, and I'm kind of in a empty house, um, or almost empty. So bear with me if it's a little bit echoey. But today we are going to talk about the parenting differences. So, and when a parent takes it to court after they can no longer handle the way the other parent is parenting their child. Okay. And I brought up a story earlier today. So if you were on my feed, you will see that I posted a story about a boy who died after eating a slug. He was 19, by the way, but as you all probably know by now, children's brains don't mature until they're 27. So I know you can't do anything about it with the other parent when they're 19, but we're going to back up a little bit to like when the children are 14, 15, 16 years old, and you're going through divorce. Or you've never been married and you're just in a custody dispute, okay? So you've got things going in court already, and the other parent is being very permissive with your child. Some parents call it Disneyland parenting, right? And they let the children make whatever decisions they want, and next thing you know, kid doesn't want to go see you, or they come to your home and they don't want to follow any of your rules. And I don't know if you saw Melody Brooks' feed yesterday, but she talked about the spanking and the new studies that came out where she was discussing how spanking, they're now saying, creates harm to the child. And Ron and I do constitutional stuff, so I'm going to be talking to you more in terms of from that perspective of, do you take things into court now if the other parent is, let's say the other parent disciplines the child more sternly and strictly than you. Let's say that they do spank your child. Are you now going to go into court and say, hey, there's these new studies, and now this parent should be charged with child abuse, right? So most states that I know about, like Texas, it's not illegal to spank your child. So what do you do in this interim? I have said in the past that if you make something illegal, as long as it's not unconstitutional, then it's illegal, right? So you can take it to court and say, I want them, I'm accusing them of X, Y, and Z. However, if it's not illegal, what do you do? Okay, so you may believe, hey, these studies are gospel. I want to follow this, but the other parent doesn't agree with you. So at this point, you're kind of in a void because the courts don't have a law that says it's illegal, like I said, here in Texas. So maybe you're against it, the other parent's for it. How is it going to affect your child, right? Or how has it affected your child? Well, in your situation, you may have grown up with it and you may be fine, but we're not going to go into all the details on that. We're going to go into more court, okay, dealing with court. So you've got a child who's not obeying you, and let's say that you're getting frustrated and you don't want to deal with it anymore. Every time the child comes to you, they are more uh, resistant, right? And you don't want to spank your child, right? I'm just saying if you're one who doesn't want to do it. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel that if you went into court, that that's going to resolve it for you, right? Probably what they're going to do is say, oh, we need to get a gal, we need to get, some other studies. And you've heard me talk about that as well. But let's talk about, how do you manage your child before you even get to that point? Then we'll get back to the court thing. So, sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. So managing your child during that time period, Melody Brooke brought up the example, Love and Parenting with Logic. It's a book I haven't read, so you may want to look into it to help you out, but I have a few suggestions. So a child saying that they don't want to come to you anymore, you're strict, but you don't spank, and the child doesn't want to do as you say. So at this point, you may try to do restrictions on them. And as soon as you restrict your child from something, right, all of a sudden they're going to run, right? They're going to threaten to run. They're going to say, I'm just going to go to dad's house because he's going to let me have my phone. I actually had a neighbor who, she had gone through a divorce, and she did take her child's phone away from her. In the courts, they tend to pass orders that say you cannot restrict your child, you cannot take their phone. So what do you do when you can't restrict them now? So you can't spank, you can't restrict, you can't discipline them. So what do you do when the child no longer wants to follow your rules in your home when they come to you? You know, so my personal opinion, when I went through it, my son, my younger children knew that if you're not going to follow the rules in my home, then that's a non-starter. You're not gonna get any privileges in my home. So regardless of whether I could take their phone, I could restrict from computers. Sometimes courts will order you not to restrict from that. But even if you can't restrict them from the phones and the computers, there are things you can do. Like, you can't take those from them, but you can restrict them from certain sites. You can limit their time on them. You can't restrict them from the other parent. So there are still things that you can do so that you can employ what Melody mentioned as natural consequences. But let's say the other parent takes you to court. They use it against you. The child complains that they're constantly stressed out and frustrated because there's always a conflict about their usage with the phone and the computer, right? Well, what happens is you're going to be put in a very expensive position. You're going to have to defend yourself in that court, and you're going to have to tell them, you're going to have to testify probably on why you're disciplining your child the way that you're doing it. Now, of course, if you're not spanking the child, you think no big deal. However, I have actually seen a court cut a mom's time, and she was not spanking. All she was doing was making sure she had passwords to the children's phones and computers because she wanted to know what they were doing, and it got used against her. And that's actually a problem, because if you think that your parenting style is hurting the child, well, not knowing what the child's doing is actually even more dangerous and harming those children. Now, trying to convince a judge of that, forget about it. You're probably not going to convince a judge about that. So it's not really a good situation to end up in front of a judge with these kinds of complaints. So your best bet actually is to, no matter how hard it is to work with the other parent, is to just tell the child that if they're not going to follow the rules, that's how you're going to do it. If it ends up in court, you just say those are your household rules, and if it's not against the law, that you're going to object to them using that against you. But try to negotiate with that other parent. Here's how I would suggest to do it. I've had to do this multiple times. A child comes to you, they're not going to listen. You get the other parent on the phone. If the other parent cannot talk the child down and is unwilling to try and help you to get that child to listen to you, that's what you testify on to the judge. You say, look, I had the other parent participate because the child is coming to my home saying, hey, I prefer the other parent's parenting style. So while you may disagree with that parent's parenting style, if that parent is riling them up and they're coming to you and you tell the judge, look, I utilized that parent because that's the style the child's supposedly preferring and responding to. And if that parent does not encourage that child to obey you, and instead feeds into the child to continue to disobey you, guess what that is? And there are some states that actually have this in their statutes, that if the other parent's parenting style is affecting the child, and that child is showing negative signs in your home, now you can flip that charge around on the other parent. So that's why I'm telling you to engage the other parent. That parent's playing games with you. They're playing games with your children. That's harmful to your child. So check your state statutes. If you can't afford to have an attorney do it for you, you do need to learn this. There are many parents now who cannot afford attorneys because this takes so much time to do. And there are so many attorneys that don't have time to go through these rules, or you can't afford to pay them to go through every detail of every statute in your state. Get into your statute, get into those codes, find out if your statutes say that if the other parent's parenting, or it may not say those words, but it may say something about, if let me think if I can think of a statute example. I'll try to get on there and post one for you because I don't have one off the top of my head, but there are statutes that I've seen that say if the parent's parenting style has had a negative impact on that child, that the parent can actually, or the court can actually change custody. All right, so if you already have custody, a custody parenting plan established, and the other parent is what they call a custodial parent, and things need to be changed. If they're the controlling parent, things need to be changed, or you're trying to argue for equalization, utilize this to your benefit. Don't get frustrated. I know it's super, super painful for you when you see a child being used and suffering, but this is your way to get things turned around. All right? You have to be patient with it. And yes, I know they had studies that come out and they sound scary, like the spanking study, but put it all into perspective, okay? Children are pretty darn resilient. We all go through traumatic things and we all go through stuff. I personally feel if you don't go through anything, or children don't go through anything, they won't develop any kind of coping skills. So try to remind yourself that in the overall big picture, your child is gonna be okay. As long as you can methodically get your authority back and you can utilize things to get things turned around so that you don't lose that ability to continue to provide structure and influence to that child, you will regain that back. And hey, Monica, I see you on there. And Monica's one who only has 4 days a month with her child. And you know what? I know 4 days isn't enough, but it's still better than 0. It's very difficult, but you still have some influence over that child. And you just keep working towards maximizing whatever influence and development you can implement in that child. All right, they will learn tools from that. I mean, there are children who go to Sunday school that's only 4 times a month. And you know what? I went to Sunday school on my own when I was a child. That had a huge impact on me, and that was only every Sunday. And that was 4 days a month on the months that only had 4 Sundays. I'm not saying it's enough. I'm just saying that it's something that does provide you that influence. So utilize it to the best of your ability. And like I said, keep working towards educating others and getting those rights back as you can. I know many of you have tried very, very hard, but while you're doing that, keep in mind you do need to parent these children. You do need to watch for opportunities when the other parent is giving you that opening. So unfortunately, yes, parents, some of you are going to need to use these courts to get that authority back. When they've taken your authority away, yes, it is a constant battle until you get it back. It is worth it. I know they'll try to make you look bad for fighting to regain your authority. You're going to have to set that aside. You are putting your child first when you fight to protect those rights. You are putting them first. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them tell you that you should focus somewhere else. Unfortunately, you have to spend some time on doing this, but your child is your most important thing in your life. Of course you're going to spend time doing this. If your child were kidnapped by a stranger, would you not spend every waking moment trying to bring that child home, locate that child, bring them home? That's what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying take the child away from the other parent you disagree with. I'm saying that you are spending time to increase your influence with that child. But at the same time, don't forget to spend that quality time with them when you do have them. Get a support group to help you manage those emotions when you are, sorry about that. Desk gets to me, as you know, and we're in move mode. So spend your time, try to focus on them as best you can. I know sometimes that's hard, but you know what else, guys? It's not it's not life destroying for a child to see you go through some sadness and emotions. Just make sure that when you're getting frustrated, that you're not hitting them out of frustration, as Melody said. Make sure that you're doing your best not to take it out on them. And it's okay for them to see you be weak sometimes, okay? It's okay for them to understand that this is impacting you, because you know what? That lets them know that they are important. But don't make that your whole visit, your whole time. Make sure that you also put what their ideas or their interests are first as well, so that they keep wanting to interact with you and they can have some positive time with you. So if something is making you sad in the home and you're not able to get away from the idea that, oh my gosh, you know, they're not going to be home very much, go outside and do something else. Take them somewhere. Go for a walk. All right. So get away from whatever's reminding you of all that other stuff. Like, I spent a whole lot of time working on my court stuff, and my children weren't with me very often, and so they would complain that I'd spend too much time on court things. Sometimes dates were coming up, like, of course the other side's going to hit you with hearings and things that come up like right around the time you have them, or sometimes during the time you have them. It's inevitable. You have to work on something. But if, you know, do your best you can to work other things in. And if they focus on that and they say that that's all you're doing, then that's what they're going to focus on. But you know what? Sometimes that's all you can do. So let me see what else other people are saying here. I got to put my reading glasses on so I can read it. Okay, hold on. Bear with me for a minute, you guys. Hey, so I see Wendy's there. Hi, Wendy. So Wendy says, you're so right. Any amount of time with your kids can be bonding and influential. Yes. My custody got reduced from 50% to only 4 days a month, and it was so hard, but I learned to maximize that time. Yeah, and Wendy, I've seen that Wendy has actually bonded with her children again. I saw very happy wedding moments with her. So things do get better. Yes, you will have lost that time, and there will be voids that you missed out on, but parents, it's not always in your control. Do the best you can, but it's not all in your control. Chris says the control phone. When the child is with me, the mother has texted him a picture of the dog saying it misses him. Sad use. Okay. So that's a good point that Chris brings up about when your child's with you, the other parent's texting things to the child, making them sad. Okay, I saw that, Wendy, that you're still alienated. I'm just really super sorry about that. I think sometimes we can't fix everything, but that child still knows that you are trying, and maybe one day they'll come around. So back to Chris's thing with the phone. Yes, some parents do text them, and it impacts them emotionally, and you can see it. You hear it. It changes their behavior and their attitudes. So there have been times where the courts have had to limit the other parent's time or use of the phone when the child's with you. And that is actually appropriate. So what's happening, Chris, is that parent is actually interfering with your time with your child. Alienators use those tactics all the time to try to get the child to not want to be with you, right? So a child's gonna miss their dog, and that's gonna cause them to maybe, you know, take out their stress on you, and ruin some of the time that you have with them. So that parent's stressing them. It's an appropriate use of the court, unfortunately, because the courts put themselves in power over your rights. So at this point, right now, it's an appropriate use of the court, Chris, to go and ask them to restrict that parent from interacting with the child while the child's with you. So if you have an order that says you have to make the child available to that parent, I actually don't agree with the court ordering a parent to make that child accessible to that parent the entire time. So saying that they're accessible maybe at 15 minutes a day at a specific time in your kind of situation is very appropriate when they're interfering with your ability to parent that child and influence that child. So again, that is, you know, an expensive solution. However, if you are able to get orders like that, it will make your parenting much, much easier. It'll make the child's time much more enjoyable with you as well, because the child is trying to respond to both of their parents. And we want the children to respect and obey their parents. And how can we promote that with them when one of the parents is trying to set off their emotions, right? So you want to, if you present it to a judge, Chris, you have an attorney present it in a way to say, look, I want to continue to express to my child to respect the other parent and obey them when they're with them, and I have a difficult time doing that when this parent is intentionally trying to pull on my child's emotions while they're with me and trying to get that child to not want to be with me, right? So they could be trying to get your child to say they want to go home with the other parent. And you do need to put a stop to that, because that is not allowing that child to have a good time at your house. So let's see. You're welcome, Igmar. Thanks for stopping in. So Igmar says his ex alienated his children about a year ago. The court is working at such a slow pace. She keeps breaking court orders. The court is not doing anything. Okay, another good one. That is a huge, huge issue. The courts do act very slowly. And unfortunately, they don't see it as an emergency when your child's alienated, and even when the other parent's not following orders. So what I used to do, because mine went very, very slow, and there was a lot of time that I didn't get to see my children. Actually, what I did during that time, if it was out of my control, I spent a lot of time talking to my support group, counselor, whoever I could go to help me adjust to the different kind of parenting that I was going to have to experience when my children were being alienated. So I spent time understanding the alienation, learning how to connect with my children when they were with me so that I wasn't pushing them further away, and then also learning if there were ways that I could get the court to act faster. So I had to employ different strategies, Igmar. One of my strategies was to do enforcement. Kind of like what I was talking to Chris about. If a parent's interfering with your ability to parent your children, which you're saying they're alienated, that's an interference of your rights and your children's rights. And you've got to present it to the court that way. So you're going to have to, sometimes you got to take in an ex parte order or a habeas if they're withholding them on your time. Just be aware that if the children are of a certain age and they're saying they don't want to be with you, things could get worse before they get better. Okay, but it's kind of like cleaning house. When you go to clean up a room, it gets messier before it gets cleaner. So you've got to prepare yourself emotionally for that. And by the way, Monica runs a wonderful program on helping you stay healthy, taking care of your nutritional needs, which is super important, because if you don't have a healthy body, you don't have a healthy mind at the, or your mind doesn't get the nutrition that it needs to moderate those emotions and those hormones in your body, then you're going to have a harder time. You're going to get ill. You cannot afford to get ill. You got to stay healthy in order to be there for your children. So she does momsunshackled.com. My site's fixedfamilycourts.com. So keep your mind healthy, keep your rights strong, work on changing your strategy in the court. So let's go back to strategy, Igmar. So you want to go into the court and you want to tell them, or not tell them, sorry. You want to put something in front of your court and talk to your attorneys. By the way, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a substitute. I just share strategies that I've helped others utilize or have taught them and they've worked for them or worked for me. One of them was I looked for other things that I could bring into the court so that I could get things going. Mine happened to be enforcement or contempt. One at one point was discovery related, so things you may not even think about. Sometimes you can present something to your court, and if the court denies it, you can challenge it through the appellate court through things like mandamus. I know you guys have heard me talk about that before, doing mandamus or mandamus on interlocutory orders. Some things you can do that with, some things you cannot do that with. So you just got to look that up. Always, always ask a lawyer about those technical ways that you can utilize this process. And like I said, unfortunately, we're still in a day and time where you've got to utilize the process in order to exercise your rights, because the courts take your rights over when you go through this, when you have a disagreement with the other parent and a petition's been filed or you're under a parenting plan. What Ron and I now call it is they are actually licensing your rights back to you. So they've actually swept your rights away and they've licensed them back to whoever they chose. It's kind of like choosing foster parents, right? They made you to qualify and then they decided what you get to have licensed back to you, but at any time they can remove those from you. So while we don't agree with the way they do it, that's where you're at right now. That's what you're dealing with. So in order to utilize this process to get that authority back, you have to change your strategy. So if you tried one thing, it's not working, change up that strategy. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's just, it's that old saying, it's like you'll go insane trying to do the same thing over and over again. You'll keep getting the same results. So if you just keep trying to file modifications, maybe that's not where it's at. Maybe that's not what's going to work, right? So you got to find another loophole. So Ron and I help parents with that. We work on that with them. We help we work with their attorneys if they have those. If you don't, we'll share information with you on what we've done, but you're responsible for what you choose to do. We can never know all the details. Like I said, we don't practice law. We practice restoration of people's civil rights and stopping the violation of those civil rights. So thanks, Monica. I appreciate all you guys, and I hope that this helps you look at things a little bit different and to look for different strategies. Check out our website, fixfamilycourts.com. Contact us, send me a private message. Watch us on Thursday. We're going to be 4 at 4. I don't know what topic we'll be talking about today, or not today, Thursday, but tomorrow, if Catherine's back and she's on board, she'll be doing her individual live Facebook tomorrow. That's Catherine McWillie. And then Friday, Monica, who's on here, Shimonik, will be doing hers. And Thursday, all 4 of us will be on. I hope you'll join us on the 4 at 4. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.